I'm very excited to bring our next guest onto the show. Jack Posobiec back with us here on the Annie Fry Show. Jack, thank you for coming back here with us. It's a really busy news day, but we're grateful you fit us into your schedule.
Hey, Andy, thanks so much for taking the time to have me on today. And what can I say? This bridge for my family, this one hits home. This is a bridge that we drive over. So there's a drive-in theater that's right on the other side of this bridge that's
Mm.
been in operation since 1956. And I love taking my kids there. In fact, we were just looking at the airing schedule for this weekend,
Oh,
talking
man.
about, which one do we want to go to? Do we want to see the new Ghostbusters, etc.? And we always take this bridge over because my kids, we call it they call it the Dinosaur Bridge because it kind of looks like a brontosaurus, or at least it did until this morning. And when we woke up this morning and saw this news, and getting them ready for school, and I had to tell them the truth about what happened, and it hit pretty hard that that something like this could happen. What a childhood to be going through this. And at my son's school, I just got the letter from the principal and all this. It's very, very I'd say we're at about a half hour from there, so it's
Wow.
it's very, very close to home for us.
I didn't realize that you were that close to it. And I think, you're a parent. I've got four kids
Yeah.
myself, and my youngest is 2 years old. My oldest is 14. But the stuff that's going on in the world, it's pretty ugly. And I actually said to my husband, like, if we can avoid, my kids are on spring break, if we can avoid our kids seeing the bridge collapse for the day until we can kind of explain it to them, I'd really like to be able to shield them from that. And I really feel like story after story after story that children today in America, of all places, are being exposed to. It just doesn't seem like it was in the 80s and the 90s when I was growing up. Maybe we just have access to more information, but it seems different right now.
No, I think that's right on both elements. So, of course, there is more crime certainly now today than there was in the 90s, and because of that, we have kids that are becoming more and more aware of it on a regular basis. But at the same time, media is now everywhere. It used to be that you could close the newspaper or turn the TV off and there was no more media. So that meant there was no more news. Now, news is on every phone, it's on every screen, it's in your pocket on these little pieces of glass that we carry everywhere with us. And it jumps out at you if you have your notifications on, like so many people do. I don't. I actually am completely against that, and I
Yeah.
urge people to turn off notifications. And I say that as someone who conducts a lot of business, obviously on social media. But at the same time, I think that people need to reclaim power over themselves if we're ever going to take power over this country and defeat the Unhumans, which I would argue if Team Humanity ever wants to win, and we've put this book out called The Unhumans, and basically said that this is the force that Team Humanity is up against. And we're now sitting at number 33 on Amazon, and it's been a wild success, much, much more than I ever expected when we announced this thing. I said, oh, maybe we'll sell a couple of copies. And it's just been, a story that we're trying to explain about what it is that we're going through right now. And I didn't think of it as a framework to explain to children, but perhaps it can give parents and grandparents an idea that what we're living through is not normal. What we're
Right.
living through is not the norm. What we're living through is not the way things ought to be. And unfortunately, we are going through a crisis period right now. And there's lots of different names for it, and we talk about it in the book. But what it does is offer people a way out, and it offers people a way out because we can understand that we have to get away from this belief that people should be put in positions of power because of their looks, because of their gender, because of any of their immutable characteristics other than their merit, their skill, their talent, their achievement. And if we just embrace those things again, we can actually return to a country, I believe it firmly, where we have wonderful cities, where we are the envy of the world, where our cities and our highways and our bridges, our airports are the pride of the world. And once again, we become that humanity that's reaching to the stars. And so that's why I didn't want to put a book together that was uh, depressing and just more outrage. There's
Yeah.
so many everyone can do. Yeah, I do that all day long. But what's the point?
Yeah.
Is if you're not showing people a way forward, and that's what we do in the book.
Jack Posobiec with us right now, author of a book you can go pre-order right now. We had the Amazon link up there before we started the interview. It's coming out in July, and it's doing very well already. It's called Unhumans: The Secret History of Communist Revolutions and How to Crush Them. And you kind of took one of my questions. I'm glad you did, and put the ball in the tee for me, because you're offering a solution after identifying the problem. There's a whole industry right now in the United States of America and globally where they want to identify problems, profit off of them, and if the problem gets solved, the profit would end. So that is a very depressing place to be. First, I want to ask you, what is Unhumans? How do you define the title of your book?
Sure. So it's very simple. The idea that that there are people who have decided to enter into most people enter into politics or enter into business or enter into society, and they say they look around at their neighborhood, they look around at their neighbors or their friends or their fellow churchgoers or parishioners, and say, classmates, schoolmates, workmates, and they say, I want to make things better. I want to improve the conditions that we're all living in. I want to do something to be a leader in my community and do the right thing. And that is human. That is humanity. That is to share those reciprocal values that make us all human. However, there are other people who decide that they don't want to make things better. They want to tear things down. They want to tear down society. They want to tear down their situation. And maybe they're from a less endowed or a less fortunate area. Maybe they're of less fortunate means. Sometimes not always, by the way, and increasingly not always. But that's an interesting
Yeah.
psychological phenomenon that we see. That there are people who say, well, if there are those who have achieved, if there are those who have earned more, if there are those people who have the big house on the top of the hill, that I don't want to improve my lot and improve the lot of my fellows. I instead want to destroy that person, tear down their building, tear down that house, take everything that they have and make them as miserable and as I am. And they do this derived out of envy, which is, of course, one of the chief seven deadly sins. And so, in doing so, embracing cynicism and nihilism, this becomes the force of unhumanity, and this
Mm.
force that instead of building a civilization, what you would then attempt to do is build an anti-civilization, build a system whereby in you would not be promoted because of your skill or your talent or your achievement. You'd be promoted because of your loyalty to the party, your loyalty to the cause. And of course, the most loyal people are going to be the people who don't have any alternative other than entering into these types of politics. So they will be the most fervent believers, the most fervent devotees of this. It's when you take a society, and this has been done throughout the years, and we go through system by system, case study by case study, and break out an entire analytical framework from the Roman Civil War thousands of years ago to the French Revolution to the Chinese Revolution to the Spanish Revolution, of course, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, all the way up to today. And we describe what happens when these forces of envy, of pride, and avarice are turned into a justification
Mm.
for political action, and then, of course, legal action, and even in some cases, military action.
It's interesting to think of it that way, because it's a lot deeper into the status quo right now in this country. I mean, it's very easy to think red, blue, Trump, Biden, and to be very surface level with it. And I try to chastise myself as much as anyone else to just think, like, let's just wait till November and hope the right guy wins and then everything will be solved. I mean, there's such a deeper cultural rot that exists right now, and it's a somewhat of a hopeless entity that a lot of people have in the way politics is played out and who's at the center of the decisions that are being made right now. That part of the title that you have here is about communist revolutions and the secret history of it, and I'm wondering, is that sounds like history book stuff. Are you suggesting that people right now need to know how to crush communist revolutions in the present?
That's exactly right. And so what we talk about is, and this is drawing on my experience as a Navy intelligence officer is that warfare has changed over the course of the past several hundred years. And in the same way that warfare has changed, our politics have changed. And so, in this case, these political revolutions have changed. We don't have, in wars, you don't see armies lining up in, these sort of Civil War or American Revolutionary War formations and going out to the field of battle like Gettysburg or something. No, you see increasingly more guerrilla warfare, technology is used, et cetera, et cetera. This is the same way that same generational change in warfare has been applied to these revolutions. And so, in the same way that the current battlefield in any of the conflicts that are going on around the world today, whether it's Israel, Gaza, Russia, Ukraine, the United States, China, which is certainly in a bit of a Cold War right now, a competition for sure, is fifth generation warfare. This is the same as the current communist, or at least Marxist, really cultural Marxist revolution and cultural revolution that we find ourselves in. It is delineated on the basis of culture, and I think that's gone over in many other works, and a lot of people understand that. What we get into is the specific tactics of the cultural Marxists and how to stop those tactics and break those tactics with a plan that we've laid out. And what we define the current situation is an irregular communist revolution. This is why, by the way, you can like walk down the street, and you don't see people like fighting in the streets, and wherever you are, it might be a nice day. If it could be fine unless there's a bridge collapsing on your morning commute.
Yeah.
But you go online and suddenly the culture wars are hot. They're
Raging.
waging. It's almost kinetic, right? And so the question is, what is the right descriptor for that? And what we define it as fifth generation irregular communist warfare.
Jack Posobiec with us right now. What needs to fail in order for this communist revolution to succeed? What are we looking for?
Well, so there's a few ways to do this. One of the ways to defeat a communist revolution, we call it the three defeats of communism. So the first one, of course, is to just sort of wait it out. This is what sort of happened with the Soviet Union. It took about 80 years. People know that my wife was born in the Soviet Union, sort of at the tail end of it. So she got to live through the collapse of her entire government. She got to live through the collapse of nations. And no one alive right now who hasn't lived through something like that wants to live through something like that. I will tell you right now, when suddenly there's no police, when there's no government, there's no authority, there's just complete anarchy, there's bandits, there's criminals, there's gangs. Everyone's kind of out for themselves in many ways. There's military forces, but nobody knows who's in control. That's not a great option. And of course, it takes about 2 generations at least until the looters have come in power and deplenish the resources of the treasury, which they founded. The next we talk about is the great men of means. And great men of means come along, and we see this in Spain. We see this in places like some of the Bolsheviks had a response from some Russian nobles, notably Pyotr Wrangel, and people who fought back with the White Army. And then, of course, we also see the final way to defeat it is, of course, just people individually forming networks, forming coalitions, working together to actually put the screws to the other side. And there's a very simple word that I think people, whether you're conservative, right wing, centrist, moderate, even the good liberals, I have hope there's still some good liberals out there. I think
Yeah.
there are. The word is reciprocity. The idea that if there's a group out there that's conducting doxing and harassing and censorship and canceling and all of the words that we all know about, they're not going to stop because you scold them. They're not going to stop because you beat them in some debate. They don't actually care about the things that they say. All they care about is defeating their opponents. And so these word games that a lot of conservatives get themselves into and tied up in knots saying, oh, we've pointed out your hypocrisy. Oh, we've pointed out your double standards. They don't care. Their only principle is winning. And the only way to fight back in a situation like that is reciprocity. You have to make them feel it too.
The book is Unhumans, and you can pre-order it right now through Amazon. We will tweet out a link to it here with our guest, Jack Posobiec. Thank you for being here with us. I would assume that what you're looking at right now, that it seems imperative that people read this probably before the election, and it's a precursor to potentially what could be existing in this country, but globally, we're in an incredibly unstable environment. We don't seem to have any leadership that cares first about America right now in place. Do you consider this like required reading before the November election this year?
Well, I certainly do think this is required before anybody goes to vote because, and it's what you just said, we're in an unstable world right now. It feels like everything's coming out of control. It feels like everything's falling apart. And our subtle twist, the reframe, as it were, that myself and my co-author Joshua Lysek put on all of this is that what if this isn't just unintended consequences of good intentions?
Mm.
What if, in fact, this is actually the intended consequences of bad intentions? And that, people say, oh, do you mean everyone on the left? No, 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 no. But I'm saying there are certain people in key nodes of power who do want the decline, who do want the decimation of the West, who want the managed decline of the United States. You saw this really break out during the second Obama term, and it's kind of been going on in a what we would call in the military a low intensity conflict ever since the really 2013, 2014 uprisings that we saw, and the combination between social media activity and real world activity going all the way to, by the way, we mentioned Baltimore earlier, the Freddie Gray riots in
Yeah.
2015 were the very first riots that I ever covered, and we're almost at a decade since then. And so people need to understand that what's going on before your eyes right now is not an accident. It is being done because of a playbook that has been honed over literally centuries. And fortunately, once you understand that playbook, and reading Unhumans will give you that knowledge, we also have come up with a counter playbook to defeat them.
Jack, we're always grateful for your time here. You have an incredible resource of knowledge with your time as an intel officer. And so we thank you for your service, but we also thank you for your time here on the show and encourage people to go check out your book coming out this July. You can pre order it now, Unhumans. Grateful for you to give us a little bit of your afternoon. Thanks for being here.
God bless, Annie.
God
Take
bless.
care.
Yep, you as well.